In this video, I'm going to share with you some programming skills and topics that nobody can teach you. Now, what I mean by that is that you can't pick these things up from a book or a university lecture or a YouTube video. These are things that require hundreds, if not thousands of hours of practice, and that you're going to build over a career and are going to take multiple years for you to really obtain. Now, I myself do not claim to possess all of these skills. In fact, a lot of the skills that I'm listing here are things that I've noticed senior developers have that I myself do not have, and that I've been slowly working towards as I've been programming for about probably the past, 10 years. So really the point of this video is to share with you these few topics that you can actively think about them as you improve in your career, as you get better at software engineering and programming. And of course, by actively thinking about them, you're going to work on them and kind of build those skills faster than if you weren't really considering them from the start. So with that said, let me start talking about all of the things that I myself cannot teach you. But first, I'll teach you about the sponsor of this video. Before we get started, I need to thank Linode for sponsoring this video. I've been using and working with Linode for nearly 3 years now, and they've consistently been my go-to choice for hosting my applications and servers. In fact, right now I'm using Linode to host the official Tech with Tim Discord bot, a website, multiple of my domains, and a Kubernetes cluster. Linode makes it super easy to spin up servers with their one-click app marketplace and have tons of written guides and YouTube videos on their channel to help you get started. Now, if you're having any issues, you can reach out to their 24/7 support team and actually talk with a real human being. Now, Linode's pricing is simple with no hidden fees and full transparency, and you can test out Linode services for free by using the link in the description and claiming an $100 60-day credit for any new accounts. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with Linode over the past few years, and one last thank you to them for sponsoring this video. So moving in here to skill number 1. Now, you might argue that this isn't necessarily a skill, but I'm kind of grouping it in this category, and this is going to be domain knowledge. Now, domain knowledge, at least from my perspective, is essentially a very specific and specialized set of knowledge in a certain area of programming, tech, software engineering, whatever it may be. It's really being kind of an expert or a specialist in some specific topic and area, and this is something, again, no one's really going to be able to teach you how to do. This requires multiple years of learning, maybe even decades or multiple job positions. And this is something that you have to do for a very long time before you start to really pick up all of this specialized and nuanced knowledge, which is very valuable in, specific roles, positions, companies, etc. Now, to give you some concrete examples here, I worked at Microsoft. When I worked at Microsoft, I was just an intern there. This was my first kind of tech job. And as I got in there, I realized very quickly that the senior developers that I were working with, guys that were like, maybe like 45, 50 that had been working there 20, 30 years, they had so much extremely specific knowledge on these, super specific and specialized kind of tasks and projects and all of these things that I just knew nothing about whatsoever. They were kind of the experts in that area, and if we ever had a problem, we would just turn to them and say, hey, do you know what the issue is? And they'd immediately have an answer, or they'd have kind of a hint in the right direction. They just knew so many little details about things that you could never even kind of dream of picking up or finding a book that would share, and really that knowledge was accumulated over decades of them being in this field and spending so much time on these, specific topics and projects and whatever. Now, in terms of domain knowledge that I may have, that could be related to something like Python. You guys watch this channel, you know that I do a lot of stuff in Python. I'd be very hesitant to call myself an expert or a specialist, but I think I'm probably on my way to getting towards that point. And I know a lot of really kind of, specific details and nuanced points about Python that most people that don't work with it every day just wouldn't know. And the only way that I was able to accumulate that knowledge was by spending countless hours, probably thousands of hours of at this point, writing code in Python, learning about Python, building different applications with it. That's really the only way to gain this domain and super specific knowledge, and it's something that's extremely valuable, especially if you're in a really kind of specialized position. Now, I know this is a very vague area, but this is something that you should think of when you're kind of learning different technologies or topics. Do you want to have domain knowledge in a specific area? Do you want to be considered an expert or kind of a specialist in one area, or do you want to be more of a generalist? That is kind of an argument you can make on your own, but this is definitely something that no one's going to teach you and that can take a very long time to build. So moving on to skill number 2, and this is going to be programming habits. Now, this is something I think a lot of people overlook, but this can be a massive skill and advantage if you build really strong and good habits early on when you're learning to code. This is something I really wish I thought about more when I was younger and just getting into programming, was building those really strong habits so that I could do stuff subconsciously and without thinking about it, just instinctually, right? Now, I know you guys all know this in your regular lives. Everyone has habits, right? Like, we operate on our habits, and the people that are most successful in a lot of areas are really just the people who have built the best habits, right? The people that have the habit of getting up every day, working out or doing their little routine, and they're just in the habit of doing successful things every single day. That's the same here with programming and with building strong programming habits. So to give you a few examples here, a habit that I've recently kind of started picking up on in programming is giving really good variable names and always making sure I'm having a consistent styling when I'm writing code. At this point for me, this is something I don't actively have to think about. I just do it instinctually when I'm coding. And a lot of people actually comment that they like kind of the style of my tutorials because of this habit, right? I have a fairly consistent style. I write code in usually a pretty understandable way. And I'm always trying to think about kind of the variable names without really having to put too much effort into doing that. I know that sounds contradictory, but habits are really those things that you're doing without thinking about. And that absolutely applies with programming. Another habit could be like, do you always write a test before you write your code? Are you always testing your code? Are you making a commit after every small feature? Are you separating logic out into different kind of functional units? All those different things, right? That you're only going to build by spending a large period of time doing them, and that you can only have good habits in if you're actively thinking about, what is my habit here when I'm writing code? So I would challenge you guys, think about what are your programming habits? What do you always do, good or bad? And should you continue that, or should you try to change that habit in kind of a more positive direction? Now, again, these are things I notice with a lot of senior developers. They just have good habits when it comes to designing software, when it comes to writing tests, requiring stuff to be in a specific format or style or whatever. They do everything right because that's a habit for them to do that. Obviously, there are exceptions, but I think this was a good point here. Programming habits, think about them, especially when you're just getting into programming, and they can be a huge advantage to you in the future. So continuing here to skill number 3, I have software and tools efficiency. Now, I've worded this a bit weirdly, but what I mean by this is how efficient are you using different software engineering tools? So like an IDE, maybe GitHub, version control, maybe you're really good in the command line with terminal and stuff like that. And you could even extend this to different frameworks. So maybe you're really good with a testing framework, or you're really a master at this specific Python module. These are things, again, that no one's really going to be able to teach you how to do. You have to put in hundreds of hours to build the skill, and it can really improve your efficiency and kind of how much output you have as a software engineer. So for example, VS Code. I'm sure many of you guys use this. Again, I challenge you here to ask yourself, how efficient are you at using VS Code? Do you know all of the keyboard shortcuts? Are you manually kind of going up to the menu and clicking on stuff all of the time? Would it be worth your time to spend a few minutes kind of increasing that efficiency and getting to know that tool more? Are you really good with Git? Do you know all of the commands? Do you have them memorized? I'm not saying that you need to do all of these things, but I think this is definitely a skill. And again, something you're not going to pick up unless you're actually actively doing this. So one thing that I always try to do when I'm using different softwares is I try to think about, okay, how can I make myself more efficient here? What's something that I'm constantly doing? Maybe I should learn the shortcut for that. Maybe I need to add a keybind on my keyboard. Maybe I need to spend a few minutes, really trying to learn this software better so that in the future, I'm going to be more efficient with it. For example, I do a lot of editing in Premiere Pro. Only recently I found out about a lot of the awesome kind of keyboard shortcuts in there. And again, this was something that no one really taught me. It's just over time using the software, I picked up on these different, features of it. I could have watched a video and that could have been helpful, but you only really get really good and efficient using this stuff when you use it a lot. So hopefully you get what I mean, but that's what I'm kind of trying to say in this section. Continuing, you could extend this right to different frameworks. So I think I mentioned this, but maybe you're really good with a testing framework or a Python module, and you know that you can be really efficient in this kind of specific area. Again, something no one's going to teach you, and that can be a big benefit to you. For example, I'm pretty good at writing code in Pygame, not something I'm really going out and bragging about because that's not super useful. But if I do want to whip up like a quick demo of a game or like a really basic MVP for an idea I have or something, that's a great skill to have. I can go in there. I know I'm very quick at kind of whipping up a UI and some functionality, and I can get something out much faster than probably most other people. Hopefully this was a good one. Let's go on to topic number 4. So moving on here, I have debugging and obscure problem solving with an emphasis on the obscure. Now, the reason I'm putting this in here is because I know, and I'm sure you guys all know from experience, that it can be super frustrating to be given, all these weird errors and bugs, and especially when you're using third-party libraries and stuff, and spend like 5, 6, 7 hours debugging, trying to find this issue, going through and banging your head on the table when like every answer on Stack Overflow doesn't work. And I think it genuinely is a skill to learn how to kind of quickly debug and problem solve, and how to deal with these really strange and weird problems that occur when you're programming. For example, recently I've been working in React Native. I'm going to talk more about this in a later video, but I've been doing kind of a larger development project, and we're working in React Native, and there's all these weird bugs that happen because this is a kind of a cross-platform, what do you call this, framework, right? Since it goes to iOS and Android, and I'm using a bunch of third-party dependencies, you get all of these super strange, like really specific errors, and it's super frustrating trying to actually solve them and kind of find the issue. And if I was more of a beginner programmer and I hadn't experienced this hardship before, I'd be really demotivated, kind of really depressed, honestly, with you because of all of the stuff that's been happening. And I probably would have given up on a lot of these issues, or not kind of battled through and tried to actually find what the problem is, or, use my problem solving skills to find this. So I think it genuinely is a skill to get good at and have lots of practice debugging these really weird errors, and knowing kind of a good process on how you should go about finding these issues, what steps you should try, when to go to Stack Overflow, when to go to GitHub, when to maybe ask someone for help, or maybe even post like something on a forum or all that stuff. Again, something that is really hard for me to go into more details with, because everyone is going to have all different kinds of errors they need to solve. I just know that when I was younger, I would get really frustrated and demotivated when I ran into, these big problems, or I had some bug that was, in my program for a week or something like that. And now those same problems and bugs, I'm able to fix much faster. I have much more confidence that I'm going to be able to fix them. And I think it's, a decent skill and something maybe you guys should consider. Just as a last thought here, I've been coding, again, like 10, 11 years. When I started, I was not very good. I was a complete beginner. I had no idea what I was doing. And it's really motivating, I'd say, to look back at kind of where I was even maybe 5 years ago and compare it to now, and just see the massive drastic difference. And not just from the stuff that I've learned, but from these kind of core and foundational skills that I've been working on over time, and that slowly have started to get better and better and better, to the point where I'm really seeing a bigger difference now. Hopefully you guys feel the same. Let me know in the comments down below. With that said, if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in another one.